Good evening, everyone. I got a bunch of questions here tonight, and starting to see some themes on the pages. I know a lot of you have had cold, wet, or rainy days. A lot of you had flooding. A couple of our friends out in Missouri have had like 8 to 12 inches of rain and some serious flooding out there. So our prayers and thoughts go out to you because that is not fun. We were flooded out in 2011. Hurricane Irene hit us in September when we had fields full of crops, lost $100,000. And we're thankfully able to come back from it and learned a lot from that experience. But it's no fun and it's going to be heartbreaking. So I'm definitely thinking of you guys in that. And definitely stay safe. So, first question of the night is from Paul. And Paul asks, has anyone dealt with gray mold on tomatoes in their propagation house? Ooh, that is no fun. Gray mold is a serious issue, but in your propagation house, that has me kind of concerned. So, one thing I would say is you really need to worry about your ventilation. So, you need to air that thing out. Turn up your heat, get that humidity out of there. If you have condensation on the inside of your plastic, it's too wet. So you need to up your ventilation, up your heat, spread your tomatoes out. Let's talk a little about gray mold, though, in the high tunnel, though. So later in the year, usually that happens sometime in August, starts to really kick in when the nights start to get a little bit chillier, but a lot of humidity in those nights as well. So that starts to condensate on the plants. So if you're really running a really commercial operation and really going for it, then you'd probably use something like a iGrow or something, manage that humidity, and actually burp the house by heating it in the morning, starting like 5 a.m. or something, heating it and basically get that humidity out of that house early in the morning. But if you're not going to do as quite as high tech, you're probably going to go ahead and just make sure you have your roll-up sides open, your plants pruned very well. So when our plants were, let's say once we got to July or later, we would have the bottom 2 feet in that tunnel would be just completely bare of leaves. It'd just be clusters of fruit and the stems coming up. So that's something to think about. Just keep the house open. Also would be spraying Serenade. If we started to see gray mold, we would go in and be pruning those leaves out and actually upping the spray and doing a copper spray just to kind of help with that. And all right, so that's kind of how we manage that. Let's go to the second question here. So the second question was from Steve. It's not really a question, it's more of a statement, but I did want to cover it because I think it's important. So very first market, 2 weeks from tomorrow, have all the components planted for salad mix on April 1. Was confident I would have a first cut a week before the market, but alas, a 2-week cold snap seems to have stunted nearly everything. Have 2 back-to-back sunny warm days, hoping to see a little growth, nothing. Going to hold tight and see if a miracle occurs. I can't be the first to miss a market, though. Right? Signed, frustrated in Iowa. Steve, feel your pain. Definitely been there. Thought we'd have a lot of stuff for a market and just turned into being cold and damp and wet. Steve, this is why you need a hoop house. So hoop houses are amazing. They'll speed you up by a month, 6 weeks sometimes. So definitely something you should invest in. Definitely a lot of really inexpensive options out there as well. I've been very impressed with the Farmer's Friends hoop houses. They are really cool. Now, granted, I don't think they're definitely for northern winters, but for spring and fall shoulder seasons, great deal right there. And I've got another video in some of our playlists about how I would recommend altering those for better stability. But I'll definitely link to those there in the show notes. Let's see what else we got here. All right, so Carissa Savage asks, we've got an issue with our tomatoes in the prop house. They've looked great up until now, but just yesterday I noticed many of the cotyledons are showing signs of disease. It seems to be mostly limited to the cotyledons, although in the pic on the right you can see a few plants less than 5% have damage to more of the foliage. I've never seen this problem before. We had a string of wet, cold days, and the house has been closed up, heater on, and some condensation buildup. We've been running a fan, but I think it just wasn't enough air circulation. My question is if there's anything I can do for these guys, or if we have to throw them all out. Everything else in the house looks good, except a couple peppers were damping off and were immediately removed. We're not certified but grow organically. All right, so a couple things that could be going on here. First, I think thing is just to watch your temperatures. If you're not using bottom heat on, so heated benches on your tomatoes and peppers, that's definitely a problem. I would definitely recommend you be doing that. There's all sorts of ways to do heated benches, and we probably should do a whole episode on just the heated benches and how to make those work. But definitely heated benches. If you don't know the temperature of your soil and temperature of your plants, you do need to know that. Go out and buy a $50 laser temperature probe, and I'll link to that in the show notes as well. That is incredibly helpful. Just being able to tell instantly what the temperature is in anything in your transplant house, or actually in your field soil, or in your cooler. It helps to find cold leaks and hot spots in your tunnel. So definitely a cheap $60 gets you an excellent quality one, and just saves a lot of time and effort on the farm. So definitely would recommend that. Here's another thing I want to point out, though. I'm not sure, can't really see too close, but I'm almost wondering if you may have some heater burn, and that's just kind of what we call it. But when the heater leaks smoke or chemicals, it can actually damage the plants, and tomatoes are incredibly susceptible. So you may want to check your heater, make sure you're not leaking fumes into the house. That would also be, if you think the house is closed up, that could be a problem with that. So if you're not venting as well as you could be. So definitely want to be heating and burping that humidity out of there and getting those fumes out of there. But, wet, cold nights and days are going to cause this in the greenhouse. It's definitely something that's going to be caused by that. So I hope that helps. It doesn't really look like me to fertility. I think it's just cold. Once it warms up, it's going to start growing again. But those are a couple things to think of there. All right, let's see with the last one here. All right, this is from Lacey. Lacey says, okay, best strategies for skinning new 30 by 96 tunnel with 2 layers. I'll ask again since no one answered before. Any experience inflating roll-up sides? All right, so there's 2 questions here. Let's do the second one first, because I think that's a little bit easier, and then we'll sketch the first one on the board. So the second one is inflating roll-up sides. So definitely can be done. Obviously, the key is you have to seal those ends, because in a roll-up side, the top sealed and the bottom sealed on the roll-up bar, but those ends are open. So normally what's done is Nolts and Rainflow and other greenhouse companies sell a heat sealer. So basically it clamps on those 2 layers and then just heats all the way down there. You can use a iron. I've seen it done. It's definitely going to be a little more challenging getting that temperature right, but you can do that. So that's that, and so what you do is you just run a jumper cable from the main area down to the area, the roll-up side. You do want to turn that off in the summer, though, so it's easier to roll up. So if you're automatically rolling those sides up and they're inflated with air, you're going to burn your motors out. So definitely want to be careful about that. All right, skinning your 30 by 96 with 2 layers. Let's lay that out on the board a little bit, and hopefully this makes sense here. All right, so you've got your tunnel. Let's kind of sketch this tunnel kind of like this. Sorry, guys, I'm not an artist. You get your hip board here. This is your ground posts right here. Hopefully you got your peak vents up here. You got your big door area right here. So how we're doing this is we're actually covering our end with plastic first. That's the first step. And if you're going to install like a woven fabric for your roll-up sides, that can be installed earlier as well too. So then all you have to do is cover from here to there. The way we really like to do it, let's sketch this a different way. So this is your end right here, and then this is your tunnel, is we'll actually go ahead and build a scaffold on this end. And so our scaffold will be, kind of sketch it like this, will be slightly taller than the tunnel there. And so on top of that scaffold, we'll actually lift up the roll of plastic with tractors and forks, and that roll of plastic will sit right there with a rod running through there, and then someone just backs down the ridge of this, or just use ropes and tie them to the corners and run and just pull the plastic out over the entire top right there. So that to us is the best way to do large pieces of plastic. If you're doing small 15-foot houses, just run it over the side. That's super easy. But for the big guys, running it out the ridge and then letting it just cascade down either side as it unfolds, because this plastic's fold, sometimes 8 or 10 times to get it small enough for the roll. That's your best way. And do one layer at a time. And the other thing we're doing is we're checking, climbing over the structure, making sure there's no bolts sticking up. If there is, we're covering those with tape. So just make sure that, just check that, make sure that is all nice and clean. There's no sharp edges, there's no things. There's nothing worse than putting plastic layers on and seeing 3 or 4 holes in there from day one. That's just sickening. So that's one way to do it. The other way we've done it with large houses like this, it's a little more challenging, is roll down like row cover along the entire side of the greenhouse, so on the grass or dirt right here, right in this area right here, and then roll your plastic out along the side. Put tennis balls inside the plastic. So what you do is you kind of put a tennis ball, wrap the plastic around it, and then tie it with a rope, and then have 4 to 6 areas along that with that tennis ball, and then you just pull it up and over. A lot more effort. You have to have a lot more people because that plastic's really heavy. Some of those rolls of plastic, a couple 100 pounds. So getting that all up and over can be a challenge, but it can be done that way as well. If you don't have the tractors, you don't have the scaffolding there to get that plastic up there. So those are the 2 main ways that plastic's put on tunnels. So yeah. All right, I think that was all the questions I had for tonight. It is approximately 9:30, and I do want to head to bed. But I will go ahead and put those show notes up, those couple links I had to the different, to the heat gun, and then also to the Farmer's Friend little caterpillar tunnels. So have a great evening, guys, and go ahead, like and share this. Keep submitting those questions. I really appreciate it. It's fun for me to do this every night, and keep those coming. All right, have a